You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Wednesday, back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Holt, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. I'm guessing it's probably going to be another short one. Today, I feel like I normally do on a Monday. It's taking me that long to recover from the insane night game, what have you. I know I'm not alone in this because I went and I talked to, when I was at the press conference on Tuesday night, I asked all the other reporters and they said, I was like, are you like unusually tired? And every single one of them are like, can't stay awake, really struggling with work right now. It's that night game threw us all off the way that it ended up going. So be kind to your local beat writer. Be kind to us all. We are all very sleepy. Yeah, didn't end up doing a second episode last night as I had hoped. I ended up working until I basically fell asleep and went from there. But anyway, we'll discuss a couple things that came out of the two media availabilities that we've had since the last podcast, which was the players, as well as we had Sherrone Moore and Steve Clinkscale. Since we don't have a Pro Football Focus this week, we'll get into a little Pro Football Focus grades on our own and just kind of discuss some of the players who are standing out for Michigan, where Michigan's kind of ranking in the grand scheme of everything, and all of that. So we'll do that momentarily, but before we get to that, let's get to the press conference stuff, because I think that's important as well, is trying to kind of get a beat on just kind of where the team feels it is. And I think the most important one was Ryan Hayes coming out and saying, like, yeah, I heard the boos. I heard the booing of Cade McNamara, and not here for it. Like, he's a part of this team, and they all say Cade McNamara was instrumental in Michigan's Big Ten title run last year. I still am seeing people, on social media saying, I saw someone say something like, I could be back there. I could have been back there and Michigan won a Big Ten title. No, you couldn't have. You just couldn't have. Like, he made big plays, and it might not have been as big as J.J. McCarthy possibly will make this year. Possibly. Don't put the cart too far ahead of the horse. That's very important. I understand everyone is myself included, and I'm wearing my JJ hat that I got last year. For anyone, I got this last year, especially. I think I was the first one to literally pick it up at Emden. I was looking for a hat to wear down to Indianapolis, and I keeping in mind for those who think that I'm strictly on the Cade train. All of that. But it's that's for the people who are watching on video. I forget that this is not strictly video. Most of you actually listen rather than watch. But I am wearing my JJ McCarthy hat at the moment. I am wearing also this beautiful home field shirt that just got released, which I highly recommend you go and get. Go to homefieldapparel.com to get your 1997 championship shirt. I digress. Don't put the cart before the horse, man, when it comes to J.J. McCarthy, because you never know what will happen between now and the end of the season. I'm going to knock on wood right here, but, always could have injury. You're going up against some of the better defenses. Maybe there's more mistakes made. So far, he's been flawless, but it's been against two teams that are really bad at the moment. We'll see what those teams are by the end of the year. Hawaii is not going to amount to anything. Colorado State could. And then UConn, we'll see what they end up being. They're improved, but they're still bad. But, you don't want to end up in a situation where, we've seen young quarterbacks. He's not that young. He's gotten some more playing time than others, but we've seen young quarterbacks get kind of shell-shocked before. They go out and have a bad game, and things don't. They stop kind of progressing. You see it all the time in college football. You see guys like one of my guys, Devin Gardner. Now, this Michigan team's certainly a lot better than that Michigan team that he played for, but there are times when a quarterback can get kind of ruined. I don't think that's going to happen with JJ, but right now you don't know what's going to happen. He could be incredible, which is what everyone hopes, what everyone projects. And, maybe he ends up just being good. Maybe he ends up being good, and once you go up against, hotter, better defenses, and keeping in mind that a lot of Michigan fans have revisionist history even when it comes to Denard Robinson, favorite son now. But people were clamoring for Devin Gardner at that time, and then once Devin Gardner was the starting quarterback, people were clamoring for Shane Morris. It's just how it goes. That said, I do think that JJ is going to end up being special. I think he has that capability of being the best Michigan quarterback of all time as far as while playing at Michigan. He has the talent to a degree that I don't think anyone else has. So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table, but that doesn't need to come at the expense of Cade McNamara. It just doesn't. Other interesting things that came out of the press conference, I asked Cornelius Johnson, how do you find balance as a room in the sense of how do people, you got yours this weekend, you got a touchdown, you got a big catch earlier, but, a guy like Andrell Anthony has got, one catch, I think, on the year so far? That's it? How do guys like that stay happy? And he's like, listen, we are, and he quoted the Three Musketeers, but it was kind of funny. He was like, it's an old book. Okay. But he said this after, he's like, it's a quote from Three Musketeers. It's an old book, just in case you don't know. I'm like, no, I think we know. All for one and one for all. This really is, I think that speaks to a culture that exists in Schembechler Hall. I do think that you have a situation where everyone really is happy for the other's success. I know people weren't happy with what Cade said after week 1. I don't think it was petulant. I don't think it was a knock. I think it was just addressing reality. I am absolutely fine with what he said. With I thought I earned it. I thought I did everything to earn it. I think that's fine. That's fair. He's telling you the truth. I don't think it was petulant. I don't think that I don't think he or anyone else kind of seems to feel that way. So I think this is just, this team has a great culture, and that's one of those things that's been missed. It really does feel like they do all pull for each other. It feels like the Michigan basketball team, when the Michigan basketball team has been humming, where it just kind of feels like everyone is there for everyone else. And I think that's important, and that's cool. Let's talk about what the coaches had to say here momentarily. But before we do, BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Find all the latest college football league development, or just football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I am telling you, again, if you don't know, these home field shirts are the most comfortable shirts out there. I have to thank Connor Hitchcock, who runs the whole shebang over there, for sending me this shirt just kind of unannounced. Well, he announced it, but, I didn't ask for it. This is what I was teasing a couple weeks ago when I said, you got to keep your eye out for this home field shirt that's coming out. He was like, I'm sending you this. It comes out in a week and a half. So, thank you again to Home Field. They have sponsored the show. As y'all have seen, I wear Home Field shirts a lot from different teams, whether it's Michigan or others. So highly recommend. I have spent my own money on Home Field stuff. They've sent me stuff, but I've spent more money than they've sent on their products on my own than they've sent me stuff. Let me put it that way. It's that good. All right. So we talked to Sherrone more. We talked to Steve Clinkscale. I didn't think there was anything like groundbreaking coming out of it, but Sherrone Moore kind of echoed something Ryan Hayes said, was just when it comes to the offensive line, he is not terribly concerned about the situation. He said, like, this is just normal stuff that you see. And I think that that's pretty accurate. I don't think we were talking about Michigan's offensive line at the beginning of last year. Yeah, we were kind of, because of what they did against Washington. Well, the first 3 games, they were just running all over, but they were like making it seem like an even more concerted effort to run. I could be wrong looking at the run pass ratio, because I haven't looked, rather. But I don't like what's happened, but there's not really a concern there. There's not really a concern here yet. It's more concerning to some degree that it's happening, but then when you see, it's like, okay, Zach Zinter is one of the guys that, let up a sack. It's like, okay, well, he's going to get that cleaned up, right? Like, he's who they've considered to be their best offensive player, at least before JJ became the starter. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, that's going to get cleaned up. Trente Jones is kind of struggling a little bit in week 1. It got a little bit better in week 2. Kind of to be expected for a guy who went from coming in like for like 4 or 5 plays every other game or so to suddenly getting 70 snaps in a week. Like, that's not terribly surprising. It is a little demoralizing considering the teams they've gone up against. Hawaii's got some pretty decent linemen, though, like Blessman Tayala, who's the one who got the sack against Zinter. He was one that I had as a player to watch out for. He's a talented guy. He's like a 5th year guy. I don't remember exactly. All that intel goes out of the brain about as quickly as it goes in. But they've still got talented guys. They still have D1 guys in Hawaii. So some guys are going to make plays here and there. Obviously, the big thing is continue to ascend, continue to get more cohesive as you get before you get into the Big Ten schedule. And then you've got kind of a little bit of a, like, who knows what Maryland will be. It's played better so far. But then you've got Iowa, who grades out as one of the better defenses in the country. Obviously, that's going to be a challenge. Michigan State, Penn State, those will be challenges. Indiana, maybe, probably not that much. They're not grading out well right now overall. So we'll see as far as that goes. Sherrone Moore, I asked him as well about, what it's like, play calling. And he said, like, the weird thing, the learning curve is, I've spent most of my time here, paying attention to my position, whether that's tight end or offensive line. It's like, yeah, I'll suggest, I used to suggest plays to call. Now I'm the one actually doing it. I have to pay attention to the offense as a whole. I can't necessarily go and give direct, get the direct feedback to the offensive line. It's more the offense as a whole. Now, that is the one thing that does make me wonder, like, should there be reason for concern? Because generally, now offensive, defensive coaches, Don Brown, was a linebackers guy. Mike McDonald was a linebackers guy. Jesse Minter's a defensive backs guy. But Michigan's also had guys coaching those positions. Now, Josh Gaddis was a wide receivers guy. Michigan didn't have a wide receivers coach while he was doing his thing, really. They had a wide receivers coach for 1 year, really, in the Jim Harbaugh era in 2018 when you had Jim McElwain doing it. Otherwise, it's always kind of been up to whoever the offensive coordinator or pass game coordinator is or whatever. So having your offensive coordinator, I mean, he's co-coordinator along with Matt Weiss, having to pay attention to the breadth of the offense rather than necessarily honing in on the offensive line, I do wonder if that'll take away from it a little bit. But as far as the actual play calling is concerned, I think that he won't elaborate on how it's actually working between him and Weiss, but I think it's worked well so far. Now, granted, overmatched teams, but it's worked well. Remember, Josh Gaddis' first game, it ended up being okay, but through 2 games, second game against Army, people were pretty upset with Gaddis. Not the case at the moment for these 2 new coordinators. So I think that's all good and well. Steve Clinkscale, we talked to him as well. I just like how much he feels like you could just feel the confidence he has right now in his defensive backs. And I think that that's fair. Michigan's, I think, got the 8th rated pass defense in the country at the moment. And that's just by pure stats, not by advanced analytics. Nailed that one. 8th. 125 yards per game. Again, caveat is who they're facing, but you know what? You look at some other teams and how they're faring, right? Against some offenses that maybe aren't as good. Ohio State, for instance, they've played Arkansas State and Notre Dame. Now, they're allowing 200 yards per game. They're ranked 52nd. So just to take a look at the passing offenses, Notre Dame, you already know, is not a good passing offense at the moment. I mean, they don't even have their starting quarterback anymore. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. But I would bet, if you sit here and look at where Notre Dame is ranked as far as passing offenses, 97th. Arkansas State, yeah, that might be a little bit higher. Butch Jones, and I can't remember who their quarterback is offhand, but they have an established quarterback. But they're 77th. So Ohio State's not exactly shutting people down, right? Playing some middling competition when it comes to that. So it could be worse. But I think that the defensive backs have been legitimately good. And I think that he has every reason to be excited. But, like he talked about this idea of, this is about us. It's not about who our competition is. Because, yeah, we're going to play Maryland in a couple weeks. Things are going to get tougher. But it's not about them. It's about us being as good as we can be on our own. And I think that's the right way to look at it. So lots of praise for Mike Sainer still. We'll talk about a little talk about Amarian Walker actually playing 2 ways, which I did not realize that he said something about him getting a catch in the game. I don't remember that, and I'm not seeing him on the play sheet, but obviously he was out there as a corner. So, I mean, at least it's great, right? That they found another guy that they feel can help them as a defensive back. So, yeah, he's not showing up at all anywhere here. It says A. Anthony, so I mean, he was wearing number 1, so I think it makes sense that that's Amarian Walker that was out there, but with 1 tackle. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Nothing groundbreaking. Decent little week, but this is the last week of just being in a malaise before we get into the real nitty-gritty. Excited for Maryland. Big noon Saturday, big noon kickoff, whatever you want to call it. Pretty cool that we are almost about to get into not necessarily the meat of the schedule, but the tougher part of the schedule. Certainly, you get a little butterflies when it comes to that. But anyhow, all right, let's continue on. But before we do that, hold on. Computer is taking a second. There we go. This episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. So, excuse me. Underdog Fantasy is easy to play. You can win cold hard cash in a single game. Underdog has investment backing from Mark Cuban, Kevin Durant, Adam Schefter, and more. You know how much we all love Shefty. They've always been focused on building superior products for a fun user experience. Customer support team is top notch, the best in the business. So with that in mind, it's the easiest place to win money while watching college football. Through Underdog's Pick'em game, you can look for your favorite player stats, whether you think they'll end up with a higher or lower total than that in the stats in this week's game. And if your picks are right, going up to 20 times your money in a single night. Sign up at UnderdogFantasy.com with the promo code LOCKEDON. Get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code LOCKEDON. All right, let's get into a little PFF, what have you. I still think it's I don't want to say it's disappointing. I mean, it is disappointing we don't have Anthony Treesh, but I don't want to pile on to him too much, right? Because remember, he was like, yeah, Mike Morris, I'm not that impressed with him. He's not going to do, I don't think he's going to be that great. Dude has been an absolute beast through the first couple weeks. Just looking at the overall defensive grades, week one, it was Jalen Harrell, but Mike Morris is just surged to the top here. So, 89.1 grade through 2 weeks. So far. I mean, that's a pretty impressive number. I'm going to have to look here to see if I can find exactly where he is in the overall. But that's pretty good. That's just overall defense for Michigan, as far as the Michigan people. Number one. Behind him, Junior Colson. Jaden Hood only played 9 snaps, but he got up there. He looked pretty good in his limited time. But sticking with guys who played a lot, Jalen Harrell. I'm just going to go in order here. Jalen Harrell, Michael Barrett, Makari Page, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, DJ Turner, Jamon Green, Will Johnson, Rod Moore, Chris Jenkins. Skip that one there. Yabi Anoma, Taylor Upshaw, Mozzie Smith. You'd like to see Mozzie be a lot higher, but I mean, he is getting double, sometimes triple teamed. Saden Still, Rayshawn Benny, Braden McGregor, Keyshawn Harris, TJ Guy, Joey Velasquez, RJ Moten. That's pretty much your starting group. Honestly, I mean, aside from, I feel like Upshaw could play a little bit better, at least on the pass rush. I think he's been fine in run defense. And there's certain guys I want to see rated a bit higher. I feel like this all is just boding really well. Like, there's really no one on this defense that I'm just like, I'm not feeling it right now. The only other one would be like RJ Moten. You got to come down with those interceptions, man. You've got to. Got to. As far as overall, when it comes to players overall in all of college football through 2 weeks, I'm losing this here. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, maybe it does. So no, Michigan doesn't have anyone in that top 50 or so per se, but they do have. Maybe I'm missing him. Okay, they do. This is the problem when you're trying to do things on the fly. Go with stream of consciousness. Okay, so Mike Morris is 33rd in the country as far as an overall defensive player. So that's great. Of course, you hate to see that Jacoby Windman from Michigan State is 6th in the country. But you know what? Early still. Lots of things to work out as far as that's concerned. As far as offensively, now there's really not a easy way to do anything as far as Pro Football Focus just putting in everybody here because it's just passing or whatever like that. But JJ McCarthy is the second best passer as far as they have it. Second best offensive quarterback. The most important position. So that's... He's played, he started one game, played a bit in another. That's everything you want at this point, right? Michigan has the number 1 defense in the country, according to Pro Football Focus at the moment. And offensively, it's still upper tier, but it was like 28th or something like that. So they're getting some things kind of going, and you love to see it. But again, that's just playing against lesser opposition. These grades are not opponent adjusted. But you play against who you can play against, and Michigan's doing exactly what it should do. That's the thing, is people say like, oh, but they're playing whoever. But they're doing what they're supposed to do. Michigan State, for instance, did not do what it was supposed to do against Western Michigan. It did against Akron, so that's good news for them. But it did not against Western Michigan. Michigan's done exactly what it was supposed to do the first 2 weeks. Expect that to happen week 3. And then when they play Maryland, that's going to be a huge test for the secondary as well as for the pass rush. And see where they go from there. It'll be a step up defensively from what they've seen so far. Does it still look really good? If they can go out and beat Maryland by, I say, just 3 scores, 21 points. They don't need to go out there and just absolutely destroy Maryland. It's the first Big Ten game, really, so it's going to be one of those situations where, I think it's the worst time of year to play Maryland to some degree, because you want to play Maryland when they're a little bit have a little bit less confidence in themselves. You don't want them to sneak up on you. But I digress. But overall, Michigan, I believe, the number 2 team in the country according to PFF's grading. So that is what you want. Overall, yes, Michigan behind only Minnesota, number 1. Also, Minnesota has the number 1 offense. Who would have seen that coming? They played an FCS team, though, so that does make sense. All right. This, I feel, was one of my more boring shows because we're just kind of in the middle of UConn week. But it is what it is. We'll be back with the mailbag tomorrow, Thursday. I do want to try to make up that Monday episode at some point. We're going to try to. I don't know how or when, but we're going to still try to do that. Because now that we are in season, I don't like missing days. In the off season, I don't care that much, but in season, I don't like doing it. So we'll try to find a way to make that up if we can. If not, I guess it is Connecticut week, so it is what it is. But we'll be back with the mailbag, so get your questions in. I've already posed the question on Twitter. Thank you for watching and or listening. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.